Hi friends, it's Maddie of The Girly Geek and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here, nice to have you. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my 2022 reading journal setup. I've been keeping a reading journal for the past couple of years and this year wasn't the best. I wasn't the most consistent, so I'm ready for a fresh start in 2022. In this journal, I wanted to have a crisp and clean kind of minimalist theme, so I'm starting off with some mechanical pencils to draft everything out, and then I'm going to be using a bunch of gel pens, fine tip markers, other markers, and of course brush pens as well. And then the Pigma Micron markers, which are absolutely amazing for any intricate lines. I love them so much, but my old set dried out and I only got this new one about halfway through filming this. Then I brought out my mild liners for some subtle pops of colour. I also got out some simple grid washi, some craft paper, and then some ripped out pages from a chapter sampler. Not a full-on beautiful book, don't worry. I would not harm a book like that. And onto the star of the show, the notebook. Can we get a moment for the notebook? I chose this gorgeous white and gold moment from Archer and Olive with the gilded pages, and it is stunning. And of course I need to christen it by putting in my name. I made myself some custom name stickers. These will be coming to my shop next year, and I'm just putting in some little star clusters as well to make it have a little zhuzh. Why not? And then I'm moving on to the cover spread situation. I already had a little illustration drafted out in pencil, but on the other side, even though it's not technically a page, I didn't want to leave it bare, so I thought I would do a fun little collage moment and also add in some illustrations to tie into the other page as well. I'm just using a simple black fine liner to go over my illustration. I wasn't completely happy with how the fine liner was going. I didn't think the lines were super crisp because my Micron markers had run dry and I had to quickly order another one and wait for them to come. But in the meantime, you know, these got the job done and I'm still pretty happy with the result. I did toy with the idea of using colored pencils or watercolors for this, but I wanted to keep things pretty simple and crisp, so I just stuck with the black and white line art feel, and I think it looks really chic. I don't know, it gives like an enchanted woodland forest vibe, and I kind of wanted to tie that in throughout the entire journal. Then it was time to kind of figure out the text situation and configure how I wanted that to look. I ended up settling with some lettering, some simple text, and then some white to make the year pop. And then I'm going ahead and filling in this quote on the other page. Next up was the index page. I already kind of had this drafted out in my head. I wanted to use some craft paper and pages to do a collage in the corner and then illustrate the rest of the page with a rounded box which I could put my contents into. Frustratingly, the pen that I was using kind of split or frayed and left a pretty bad mark on the page, which I just used some sticker paper to cover up, and then I moved on to these little book doodles. I've done these in a couple of my reading journals. They always just look fun and, you know, classic in black and white, and they look so cute, so I was going to put them in as well in the background with a couple of star clusters here and there to kind of, you know, convey the whole books are magic theme. Once I had finished those, I moved on to using my mild liner to do some alternating rows, which I thought kept this page really interesting. It just made it look complete. Then it was time to move on to my goals page. I started off with another little collage in the corner with some black paper and some craft paper to write out my heading. I drafted a lot of different lettering and wasn't happy with any of it, so I eventually just moved on to doing the illustrations. For this page, my idea was to do a gallery wall kind of situation with the frames housing each goal. I tried not to use any super precise lines, just to keep things looking, rustic, whimsy. So the oval kind of really annoyed me for a long time, but I ended up fixing it eventually. I then used my Gelly Roll pen to add in some details. The whole time I had this idea in my head of it having some of those floral details at the top and bottom, and then a white line through the oval. So you can see me kind of going in and filling that out now. I think it looks really good. It made it look a whole lot more sophisticated. And after I added a couple of star clusters here and there, I wrote in my goals. These are not at all hard, rigid goals. Reading is something I do for fun as a hobby, and I never want it to feel like work, so I am very gentle with my goals and just use them as a guide for what I want to do more of. I probably use them more as reminders than anything. Now on this spread, I started doing some floral illustrations for my anticipated releases spread. This is just part one of my anticipated releases. I did my research and I have a full-on multi-page anticipated releases list for 2022. I just wanted this spread to be able to house the first couple months of the year. You can see I'm adding in a couple pops of color. I kind of regret this. I mean, I like the yellow in the flowers, but I kind of wish I didn't do the green. But what can you do? And then I went on and finished the text and added in some star clusters to tie in the rest of the pages as well. And then I thought it was looking a little sparse, so I thought I'd add in some more mushrooms and plants as well. I got quite decorative with this spread because I knew that I wanted to keep the text aspect pretty simple. I was just going to write the months in some lettering and then simply write out the titles of each month. Fast forward a couple weeks and I came back to it with my Pigma Micron markers, and I'm getting ahead and writing in all the titles. Pretty boring, just some simple lettering for the month with a mild liner swatch behind it, and then the titles. It's definitely not my most exciting anticipated releases spread. The one I did this year was very, very cute, definitely more decorative, but it wasn't very functional. I'll insert a picture here. Aesthetically, I really like the bookshelf, but you can only fit the title, not even the author's names, and it's very hard to arrange by month as well, so it's just not functional for me. Next, I got to adding a little bit to the index and then moving on to my 2022 review page. For this, I kept things pretty simple, just some collaging for the header. I did some serif font over the craft paper and then layered that on top of a book page, and then in the black circles I went in and just wrote 2022 in some simple block lettering and added a couple of star clusters. Then I started spacing out and ruling out the tables that I do for each month, which is basically a summary of the months. So I put in the total amount of books that I've read and the various forms of which they come in. So total amount of books, then there's physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks as well. This is really the only time I used a ruler for straight lines in this journal, just because, I didn't want the tables to look not uniform. And then I went in with a grey mild liner for the header, and I repeated that on the next page as well. And then came time for January. In my past journals, I haven't really broken things up into months. I usually just have one long log that covers the entire year, but this year I thought it would be much easier to keep track of my progress and stay on track if I broke things up into respective months. I thought that having a calendar would help me visualize the month and really understand, how much time there actually is in the month to get reading done. I thought I could use this kind of as a timeline as well. So I might write in the boxes when I start a new book, when I finish something, and so on and so forth. Everything is just a blur in my head, so having somewhere to visualize it really helps. I kept things pretty simple, again with a tiny bit of collage in two of the corners. The lettering for January I wasn't super happy with at the beginning, but it looked much better once I put the white pen in, which is how these things tend to go. And then in the side I decided to put in a tiny little box for a tentative TBR. I'm definitely a mood reader, so what I think I'll be into for the next month is probably not going to be relevant in 3 days, let alone a whole month from now. So it's just a little space to note down some things I want to get to soon. It's time for my January reading log, which is where I'm going to put my summary of all the reads I get through in January, which I'm realizing is going to be a very busy month, so it's probably not going to be that many. But I have a little sketch on the right hand side of what that's hopefully going to look like once I fill everything in, and I'm going to put some covers, a little text, and my rating, and a little bit of thoughts, and that should be it. So I kept it fairly minimal and simple. It's pretty simple with a teeny bit of collage, mostly just some different kinds of lettering, and then a little doodle up in the right hand corner to fill up the space. For the final spread of January, it is my stats page. So as you can see, I've used a pencil to kind of sketch in what I want to include. A lot of different little sections that I think are good details that I like to track in what I'm reading. So I'm just going ahead and doing some rounded little boxes to put in various details of the month. So I'm going to put in how many books I read, how many pages, what genres, different kinds of representation that are present, my ratings, and the forms that I read in, and then also a little spot to put in my favorite book of the month. I dressed it up a teeny bit with some drop shadows, but I really like the headers on these, which are black with the white text. I think they pop really well. So I'm going ahead and putting in those headers there. And then I'm getting started on the right hand page, which is kind of going to be a tracker of the days that I've read during the month. Once again, I thought it would help me visualize and keep reading as a habit. And I also liked that it meant my months would have an even amount of pages. So each month has 6 pages, which really satisfies me. Then the final thing I'm doing is using this very thin 01 micron pen to pencil in the rest of the details I want to keep track of. And with that, my reading journal is pretty much all ready for the new year. So here's a look back at everything I did. We have my name page over here, pretty simple and sleek. Then we have a more illustrated double page spread of my cover page. And then we move on to my index page and my reading goals gallery wall, which is honestly, I think, my favorite page. Then we have part 1 of my anticipated releases for the year, covering January through to April, and then my 2022 review page, my January calendar with my little TBR section, and then we have my January reads, which is where I'm going to summarize all my thoughts and my ratings and little reviews, and then my January stats page as well. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty satisfied with what I've got so far. I liked that I kept a pretty consistent minimal theme with just a little bit of pops of color. I'm really satisfied with how this came together. It did take quite a bit of planning, brainstorming and scheming beforehand before I even started filming. So it took me a while to figure out the kind of things I wanted to include, and then doing all the sketches and that kind of thing took time as well because I really wanted to perfect it. I think the structure I've come up with is going to be extremely helpful in getting me to read more consistently this new year. And I think my main problem with my past reading journals was a lack of this structure and also a lack of cohesion, because I had themes for each spread rather than a more consistent style throughout the whole journal. And that was like a really big hurdle for my perfectionist brain. So I think this next year is definitely going to be much better thanks to this much more well thought out journal. Let me know in the comments if you have a similar style or if you have a different kind of structure that you swear by, because chances are I probably will change some things in the next few months and throughout the year. You know, you live and you learn, you make mistakes and you learn from them, so I'll definitely be adjusting as I go. Also, let me know if you have any books that I should absolutely read in this coming year, or if you have some really exciting anticipated releases. I have been a really big romance girl the past 2 years, but I am looking for really good fantasy recommendations to get back into it, because I really miss the adventure and action of fantasy and sci-fi, but I haven't found characters that I've been really into lately, so I would love to get some recommendations for that. That is it for my reading journal setup for this year. I really hope you enjoyed watching it all come together. Let me know in the comments down below if you did, and if you have any other ideas I should explore. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you like this kind of content and would like to see more from me, and hopefully I'll have lots more to share in 2022. I'll see you guys later. Bye!